It's now my pleasure to introduce to you someone I think we're extremely fortunate to have back to the AWI stage, Mike Palmer. Now, as some of you may know, Mike, of course, did not start out in this world as one of the most respected financial copywriters. In fact, none of us start out as great, well-known copywriters. We start out like all the rest of the people start out, not even knowing what the word copywriting means. And we try to figure it out. So Mike originally decided that he wanted to be something like a doctor or perhaps an engineer. So he decided, luckily, that he was not going to go into those fields. And about 20 years ago, he came in contact with AWAI and began working with them, making, as he loves to say, $10 a day. That's not an hour, a day, $10 a day working as an intern. He says he's very grateful and lucky for that opportunity because it led him to work with Bill Bonner, and he decided eventually to move to Baltimore to work full-time with, when he was excited when, sorry, I got that wrong. AWAI moved to Baltimore, which was Mike's hometown. I got that right now. Today, Mike is head of copywriting at Stansberry Research, and he's helped build out one of the best copywriting teams I think ever assembled. You shouldn't take that as bragging. That's based on incredible growth at Stansberry and blockbuster copy after blockbuster copy after blockbuster copy. And this team that he's assembled has done an incredible job at facilitating that. So some of Mike's stats are extremely impressive. He was voted in 2009 as the Copywriter of the Year. He helped Stansberry Research grow into what is probably the world's largest financial newsletter publisher. Stansberry has mailed his promotions, get this, more than 26 million times. Since 2002, Mike's copy has sold well, and I emphasize well, over 1 million subscriptions. And now that'll validate by this next statistic that'll blows my mind, but it's pretty amazing. His most successful promotion, End of America, some of you may have heard of the End of America promotion, in its various forms and iterations over the last few years, itself has brought in nearly 1 million subscribers, one promotion. It's amazing. The amazing thing about Mike, despite all of these successes, in my opinion, is his gracious love of sharing his copywriting secrets and skills and understandings with other writers, as is evident by the team that he has built and is evident by his being here today and willing to help us. Today, he's going to share with us the psychology behind becoming a great copywriter, which I think we all could use a little bit more of. And so, without further ado, please help me welcome Mr. Mike Palmer.
I love coming to this event. The AWI does a fantastic job. People always ask me, what do I do when we hire new copywriters? And I still say the first thing I have them do is do the AWI course. Everybody who comes and works for me does the AWI course. So there's no better course out there if you want to learn to write copy. It's the best one. I know lots of people sell copy courses, but I've seen all of them. AWI is by far the best. So you made the right choice there. Whenever I come to this, Josh talked a little bit about my background, and I won't bore you with too many details, but I did. I started out at AWAI, hard to believe, 20 years ago, and I was an editorial intern, and I did make $10 a day. And then when I was finally hired, my salary was $17,000 a year, and I think after that I made $20,000 a year, and so I had a long road to success, and it took me a long time to get there. I finally figured out after about 3 or 4 years at AWAI that the copywriters made all the money, they got all the accolades, and they got to do whatever they wanted. So I said, I've had enough of this editorial business. I'm going to go learn to write copy. So I did that, and I started working with Addison Wiggin and a few other copywriters. I worked with Mark Ford. And so I'm very grateful for that opportunity. And yes, thankfully, Bill Bonner just happened to locate his business in my hometown, which was amazing for me. Baltimore has lots of problems, but for many years, they were giving away houses for $1. So Bill Bonner bought a house for $1, moved AWAI to Baltimore from D.C., and that's why it's there today. So I think this is a great event, and you're going to hear from lots of great people, and you're going to get lots of tips and secrets and strategies on how to be a better copywriter. But whenever I come here, one of my biggest fears is that whatever I share, it's always hard to figure out what should I talk about. I'm in the business every day, and I'm training new writers and hiring new writers, and always trying to think about what would be the most useful? If I was in your seat, what would be the most useful? And in the past, I've talked about different strategies for coming up with big ideas and all kinds of other things, ways to improve your copy. But I thought today that, my biggest fear when I do that is there's so much information that you get that no matter how good the advice is that I give, and no matter how hard you're paying attention and writing down everything, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. And I know that that's always my biggest fear. So I thought I would do something a little bit different today. And so what I want to talk about, I'm going to cover a few things, but the first thing I want to cover is kind of what I call the secret psychology of becoming a great copywriter. And this is basically the exact same talk or presentation that I give to new copywriters I hire. So our last recruiting class was 8 people about 2 years ago, and that group's been whittled down to about 5. And we have, so this recruiting class of whatever year that was, 2013, is now, they're all with us, they're doing a great job. So this is basically the same presentation I gave to them. And some of them have come back to me and said it was super helpful to get this information. So we're going to cover that, and we're going to cover the psychology of learning to become a great copywriter. We're also going to talk quickly about some great career options for copywriters today. I missed Bob Bly's talk last night. I was flying in when he was giving his presentation, but I heard some rumblings this morning about how Bob talked about all these bad things about being a copywriter. And I didn't see Bob's speech, and I love Bob. He's a friend, and we've had many conversations over the years. But I'm going to tell you why now is by far the best time to be a copywriter. I mean, by a long shot. But there's a big caveat that goes with that, and I'll explain that. So we'll cover that, and then the last thing we'll talk about is the best way to basically make $1 million as a copywriter today. And I kind of have some update on that. So let's get started, though, with the secret psychology of becoming a great copywriter. So the neat thing is if you understand this, I think you'll be much more likely to succeed. And you'll understand what it's going to take you to get better, and you'll understand what kind of copy job you should be having at different points of your career, and understand what kind of people you should be looking for to work with. And the cool thing about this is basically the psychology of how you learn. And so the neat thing about this is it applies to not just writing copy, but to about any new skill you're going to learn. Play golf, learn guitar, learn a foreign language, whatever. And the thing to keep in mind is that this is skill specific. So you'll be at one point on this curve learning one skill, and another place on this curve learning another skill. So it's not about you, it's about the skill. So the best way for me to kind of tell you how this works is to walk you through a skill I tried to learn about 5 or 6 years ago. And that is learning how to swim. I know that sounds a little silly. I'm a 45-year-old man. I should be able to swim pretty well by now. But when I was a little kid, I could swim okay, but never great. And we belonged to a pool, and my parents took me for swim lessons in the morning. And I could kind of get across the pool, but never great. I was never on the swim team, and Baltimore's not like Florida. We don't have swim teams in high school. It's freezing cold in the winter, so not everybody is a great swimmer from birth. So I was okay, and at one point about 6 or 7 years ago, I hurt my back, and I was playing basketball, and I had to kind of give up that, but I needed some kind of low-impact thing to learn how to swim. So, I kind of got excited about it, and I decided, okay, this is going to be great. I belong to a gym. They've got a pool. I'm going to learn how to swim. Pretty soon I'll be cranking out laps, and it'll be fantastic. So, of course, I was super excited about it. The first thing I did was go out and get a fancy new pair of goggles. The goggles are awesome these days. And, of course, I had to get, the racing swim shorts, because you can't really swim unless you have those. So, of course, I look ridiculous in my swim shorts and my goggles. Anyway, so I go out first day, and I get in the pool and got my stopwatch on, hit my stopwatch, start going to the other side, make it across one lap. Now, this is just a 25-meter pool. This is not like an Olympic-sized pool, so we're not talking a great distance by any means. So I swim across, hit the other side. I'm feeling okay. Swim back to the other side, and by the time I get back to the wall, I am just exhausted. I mean, my heart rate is going like 180 beats a minute. I've got to stop and break for about 5 minutes before I can even attempt another lap. So I'm still feeling pretty good about the whole thing, though, right? So I'm excited. I figure, okay, look, I haven't been swimming in many years. This is just getting started. So I'll build up my endurance. I'll push through this. That day, I think I did another 3 or 4 of these laps, one back and forth. Every time, totally exhausted after just, 2 lengths of the pool. Can't go any further. So I'm feeling okay about it still, though, right? I know it's my first day. It's going to take me some time. So I think I just got to push through it. From there, probably over the next 2 months, I kind of do the same thing. I go back to the pool, hit my stopwatch, super tired after 2 lengths of the pool. I do that for about, probably 2 or 3 months before I'm like, all right, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. I don't know what's going on, but my endurance should be getting better. I should become a better swimmer, but I'm not at all. So luckily, Baltimore is home to the world's greatest swimmer, right? Michael Phelps grew up in Baltimore. So he swims at a pool that's a few miles from my house, a few miles north of my house. So I don't get Michael Phelps to teach me, but I go to his swim pool and people who have taught him how to swim. And I take 2 lessons there. So that goes okay. I get in the pool and they're kind of working on some mechanics and doing different things with my elbow and my kick and trying, kickboards and all this kind of stuff. And I do that twice. Then I go back to my pool, and I'm feeling good, like I'm going to get better, right? So I got some lessons from some of the great teachers. Same thing. Down one end of the pool, back, totally exhausted, can't go any further. This isn't getting any better. My next step is a guy who we hired a few years before, turns out to be a fantastic swimmer. He's from Florida. He was a great polo player and was on the national polo team at one point, taught swimming in college. So I get him to try to teach me how to swim. So we go to my pool, and he tells me I need to get some flippers. That'll make everything better. So now I've got my swim trunks, my goggles, and these red flippers. And it turns out, I could swim with flippers. It was pretty easy. I could do 10 laps. I'm just kicking. You have to kick about 3 times to get across the pool with the flippers on. But of course, I take the flippers off, and still a disaster. Can't swim. So one length back, I'm done. So at this point, I'm super frustrated. So the next thing I decide to do is, what we all decide to do when we have a real problem, something we really want to figure out. We go online, right? Start Googling it. So I type in, learn to swim more efficiently or better, and lots of results come up, and there's lots of programs out there. So I pick one, and it was called Total Immersion. And just as a little, sideline here, it is, I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but has anybody ever realized how easy it is to sell copywriters and salespeople? I mean, I will buy anything. I'm a sucker for everything. And I don't know why that is, but it's if there's someone selling a way to do something more efficiently or better, I'm in. I've got it at my house. So anyway, I buy the swim program, and this program has me kind of really starting over from scratch, and I'm pretty skeptical about this whole thing at this point. I've gotten lessons from 2 different people. So I'm doing this one thing where they call it the Superman glide, and you basically just push off the wall, and you go across, and you're just floating, you're not kicking, you're not doing any stroke. And so it's all about trying to feel where your head is in the water and your body and your positioning. And, of course, people are watching me do all this stuff with all my, gear on, and I look ridiculous. But I did that, and then I'm doing breathing exercises. So I did this for probably 6 weeks. And then, I tried it again. And one of the big keys I learned was I had to stop kicking so much. I was just kicking like crazy. And really, the number one secret, if you can't swim and want to, just don't kick as much. That's the secret. Because kicking is what wears you out. Anyway, long story short, I get back to swimming, and finally I have this breakthrough, and I'm actually able to swim. So today I can swim 20 laps, and I don't swim fast. I get passed by, little kids and old ladies, but that's okay. I can swim far as I want, and I'm not exhausted. So finally I kind of, mastered this skill. So, and what I later realized was mastering, this swimming skill is just like the psychology that I went through is the exact same psychology that you go through when you're learning how to do anything, whether it's golf or guitar or copywriting. So I want to walk you through those steps and show show you what those steps are because I think it will really help you on your learning curve. So I got my high-tech drawing board up here. And so there's 4 phases of this. And really the thing that you have to realize is that anytime you're learning any new skill, it's basically this emotional roller coaster, right? And the neat thing is that if you understand where this roller coaster is going in advance, you're going to feel much better about the entire process. You're not going to get as easily discouraged. You're going to realize that, okay, Mike said, I remember, right? Mike said, I'm going to get frustrated at this point, but it's just a phase. I'm going to get through it. I'm going to get better. Things are going to change, right? I just have to keep going. So that's what I want to kind of walk you through now. I think it'll be much less frustrating for you if you understand this. And I didn't invent this. It was first taught to me by Matt Smith, who became our CEO a few years ago. And he learned it when he was working for College Pro, the painting people. They taught this. So anyway, so this is sometimes I've seen it called the transition curve. I've seen it called the learning curve. And the other neat thing about this is that not only does this curve apply to a new skill that you're learning, but it really applies to any big project that you're doing. So for me, writing a package, you're going to go through the same curve emotionally. So it's pretty neat. So the first, I'm going to draw the curve, and then I'm going to show you these 4 points. So here's what the curve looks like. Starts like this, goes down here, goes up here. So the first point on this curve is called Uninformed Optimism. And Uninformed Optimism is right here. So in swimming, in my swimming lessons, Uninformed Optimism was me super excited, going out to get my goggles, get the swim trunks, ready to go, right? I had visions of myself, cranking out 30, 40 laps and passing people in the pool and being super fit and all that. And in the copywriting world, the uninformed optimism phase is maybe where you are right now. Maybe you're further along. I don't know. But for most people, it's at the very beginning, right? You've read about copywriting. You somehow heard about it. You bought the copy course. You're at Copy Boot Camp. You're super excited. You've got visions of yourself sitting in a cool cafe somewhere writing copy and making millions of dollars, or maybe sitting on the beach and making all this money and becoming a superstar in the industry. And that's great. And what I want to make clear is that these phases, you can't just skip over any, and it's good that they're there, because if you didn't have that first phase, you would have never bought it in the first place, right? You would have never tried. If you knew how hard it was going to be, you would never get started, right? So if someone had told me it's going to take me a year and a half to be able to swim 20 stupid laps in the pool, I would have said, forget it. So it's lucky that I had this uninformed optimism, right? So we all have it, and it's just good to recognize it. So from uninformed optimism, where you don't really know what you're talking about, but you're super excited, we get to phase 2, stage 2, which is about right here. And stage 2 is called informed pessimism. So it's pretty obvious what that is, right? For me, swimming, I got in the pool, I started swimming. After just a few times, I'm like, maybe this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. And my guess is for you guys, you're gonna get to this stage, and when you're writing copy, it can be, there are different ways that you can quickly become pessimistic. You can realize that there's different things. So I think that, especially for you guys, I'm guessing, let me just see a show of hands. How many people here have no interest in working in someone's business or office and really just want to be a freelance writer? You want to work at home, kind of either part-time or a retirement job or anything, something like that. Right, so probably 90% of the people here. So what I think will happen is that you'll go through kind of 2 different learning curves, right? You're going to go through one when it just comes to learning how to write copy. So, right, it's just the basic skills that you need, learning how to identify a decent idea, learning how to prove things, learning how to structure copy and structure sentences so that the arguments make sense, learning what things have worked in that market before, what things are new. So all of that is one curve you got to go through, right? And then there's a whole other curve probably for just learning the business of being a freelancer, right? Like how do you approach people? How do you get a client? How do you deal with that client? How do you bill them? How do you structure your deal? How often do you send them stuff? There's a million things that you kind of need to figure out along the way. And so for copywriters in my group, the informed pessimism comes after they get started on a promotion, right? And they write something, and we do copy review twice a week, and they submit something to copy review, and it gets usually a terrible score. And they're like, I didn't think that would happen. But, they're still excited. They go back and submit it next week to review. It gets another terrible score. That's surprising. And then they do this a few more times. Finally, they get something out the door, it gets their copy review, and typically it doesn't do great, right? And so this is where they start thinking, maybe this isn't as easy as I thought. I thought I would come in, and I thought I would be able to start cranking out copy that was great for the business, making me rich. It's not happening exactly like I thought. So this is stage 2. Next stage, stage 3. It's right around here. And this is called, stage 3 is called the crisis of meaning. So at this stage, this is kind of where you're at your low, no matter what skill you're learning. You've tried a few things. You tried to push through. You kept going. For me, this was when I was learning to swim. I'd had lessons from the Michael Phelps group. I'd had a friend teach me how to swim who was a national polo player. And I was, at that point, that was kind of the lowest point of this process for me learning to swim. That was a point where I definitely could have given up. And I told you about the swimming story because that's a success story, right? But I've definitely had other things where I don't keep going. I tried to learn to play the guitar a few years ago, too. And this is where I stopped, right here. I took lessons. I was practicing. Thought I was getting better. But it was too hard. So I had the crash and burn. So there are basically 2 places you can go at this phase, And I tell this to copywriters, and I see it happen all the time. So you can go crash and burn. That's what I did when learning to play guitar. Or you can keep going, which is what I did when I learned to swim. So the important thing here is it's really just to let you know that everybody goes through this, no matter what skill you're trying to learn, and that you have to find some way to keep going. And here's the most important and most critical thing about this. At the same time, you're going through this. Remember, this is not your skill level. This is just what's going on in your head. This is your emotional level of what's happening. But at the same time, this is your skill level, right? It goes something like this. So when you're here, you were most excited, but didn't know anything, right? Here, you were less excited, knew a little bit more, but not a whole lot. By the time you get to here, you were really at your low, least excited about this whole thing, right? Copywriting, this is stupid. I can't believe Katie told me I can do this. I can't believe they made me go to copy boot camp. I can't believe they say I can make all this money. They're full of it. This is BS. But look what's happening at the same time. At the same time you are at your low, your skill level is getting higher, right? You're actually way more likely to be a successful copywriter here than here, right? Because you've learned a lot. Your skill level's steadily going up. So that's really the thing that you have to realize. And to me, that's kind of the critical point. When you're at your low, you're figuring out what things work. You're learning something about your industry. You're figuring out what you want to do as a copywriter. You've probably had a few things go out the door, or you've found some clients, or you've done some kind of work, and you're making progress. So at some point, when you're in that stage, you have to learn to push through. All right, so then that brings us to stage 4. Stage 4 is somewhere around in here. And stage 4 is called Informed Optimism. So when you get to this stage, this does not mean you're a master. This does not mean you'll never have failures again. What this means is that you've had some kind of breakthrough, you've had some kind of success, and you're on your way to learning and becoming competent, at least, at this skill, right? It doesn't mean you're going to become a master. Doesn't mean, I know I'm never going to become a master swimmer, but I know that I can continually improve, and I've gotten past this point. And what happens, the riskiest thing is that you get to this stage and you crash and burn. So I think that for people learning any new skill, and especially for copywriters, it's just helpful to know this. You know you're going to go through this. You know that at some point you're going to be down here. And you've got to realize that you just have to keep going. You've got to keep pushing to get to this next thing. It's just a phase, and it's just an emotional phase. Really, your skill level is getting better. So one of the cool things that I like about this, like I said, is that you can apply it to any skill, and you can apply it to even projects. So my two daughters are here today. I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And remember, it's skill specific. So for me, in copy, I've moved through this whole thing. In swimming, I've moved through this. In guitar, I'm down here. My 9-year-old has, she learned to ride a bike. She went through all this stuff. She's up here now for that. But she's just learning to play guitar. And I would say she's probably somewhere in, maybe still up here, maybe down here. I don't know. She's super optimistic. She's good, but she's got a lot to learn. And hopefully, she'll get to this point where she'll realize, man, this is a lot of practice, but she'll need to keep going. My 6-year-old, she's a great Irish dancer. They're both Irish dancers, and she's gone through this, and she's up here on Irish dancing. Now, she's just learning to ride a bike, and she was super excited, but she's down here. And so somehow we got to keep pushing her through, right? We got to get the training wheels off and get up to here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to hear from you guys. So how many people think that they're still at stage 1 in this learning curve? Super excited about it, super optimistic. Oh my gosh, really? That's it? All right. Okay, how many think they're at phase 2? They've tried, but they're getting a little pessimistic. Now that they understand a little bit about it, it's a little harder than you thought. Okay, more? All right, how about phase 3, your crisis of meaning? This is really hard. You're shocked at how hard it is. You can't believe that you bought this stupid course. All right, only a few. That's good. All right, and how many up here at phase 4? You've kind of gone through the whole thing. You've come out the other side. All right, most people seem to be here. I think a lot more of you are right here, but we'll see. All right. Okay, so what can you do with this information, right? What good is it? Well, for one, one of the things I think you have to realize is that the most important thing at the beginning of your career, it's great that you're excited, but the most important thing you need to do is find somebody you can work with or a group you can work with, and it doesn't mean you have to go work in my office or somebody else's office and become a full-time copywriter, but you got to find some group, and I know Katie and these guys have lots of different ways to do that. And I think trying to learn it on your own is a huge mistake. You just have to work with people who've been doing this, who can help you move through this curve. The other thing I think you have to keep in mind is that when you're approaching someone to work with them, if you do want to work with someone like me or another group that has a large group of copywriters, we have a dozen copywriters in my team. But there are lots of great groups you can work in. If you are going to approach someone like that, realize kind of where you are on this emotional curve. I get lots of letters from people all the time saying, I just started copywriting. I'm going to come in and change your business. I'm going to save the day. I'm going to do amazing things. And, it always makes me chuckle a little bit because I know if someone is talking to me like that, they are right here. So I don't even need to look. It doesn't mean I won't give them a chance, but I know exactly where they are. I know they've never written copy before or never anything that really has gone out very much. So just keep in mind where you are. When you're here, when you're at these early stages, you don't have to tell someone that you can change their business. All you need to tell them is that you're just starting, you're going to work really hard, and you'll do whatever they want. That's all they want to hear. They don't want to hear that you're going to change their business. So the other thing that I think is neat that you'll, even as you kind of go through this curve, as far as learning the whole process, the other thing that's neat is that it really applies to every package you write as well, which I think is great. And I think that I think it's neat that it applies to an individual promotion. And if you've written lots of copy, you should recognize these phases, You have an idea in your head, and it sounds fantastic. And so you start writing, right? And somehow the ideas, when they get down on paper, never sound nearly as good as it did in your head. And it never sounded nearly as good to when you submit this to someone, it never sounded as good as you were talking about on the phone, right? So you quickly go from this uninformed optimism to informed pessimism, right? And then pretty much every package I've ever written, and I would venture to say that every package any decent copywriter has ever written, they go through these same phases. Maybe once or twice in your career you have a great idea, and from day one it's just all perfect. Everything falls in line, you get all the facts you need. It turns out to be just as compelling as you thought at the beginning, but 99% of the time, for every project, you go through the same curve. You start writing, you start doing research, you start submitting things to people you work with and get them to look at it, and they're like, I don't think it's very strong, it's not as good as you thought it was. So you go through that same phase, you become pessimistic about it. And then at some point, you're at the bottom, and you don't know what to do to figure this out. So you tried various leads, you've changed directions 3 times, you've read 2 more books, you've talked to people on the phone, and still you can't seem to find something that's unique and compelling and will make a sale. One of my favorite direct mail marketers is a guy named Ted Keykoller, and I keep this in mind every time I'm doing a package. We had a conversation one time, and he goes through the same process as a designer, and he was down here, and we were on the phone talking about it, and he said, but this is what is great about the kind of work we do. He said, if it was easy, anybody would do it, right? And if it was easy, it wouldn't be very lucrative. So we should be thankful that it's hard, and we should be thankful for having to go through this process. And I really do feel like you just have to kind of embrace this, and you have to realize, if you understand in your mind the emotional roller coaster you're going to go on, it makes it much easier to come out the other side. You can realize at the bottom that there is a way out, and you will find it. You just have to keep pushing. You have to keep moving forward. Any questions on that? The question was, when you're at the bottom and you realize you have to push through, how do you push through? And I think for me there are 2 things that I do, and I think 2 things that you can do when you're writing copy. So the 2 things are, 1, you might have to do more research. You might have to, if you're writing about a particular person who's got some financial solution or healthcare solution, I would go back and either read books that are on the same subject, or I would go back and talk to that person, because usually it means you haven't, I don't think copywriting is really a writing job. I think it's a research job and then reporting. So you're researching, you pick out the best facts, and you're just reporting on the best, most compelling stuff. So to me, I would just go back to the research and I try to find something else. And then the other thing I do is I try to get other smart people to read it. And I just say, look, we can't figure out what to do. I need you guys to read this and give me some advice. And so I think you got to have that group of people somewhere, somehow, that you can show it to, who can help you get through that. So for me, it's either doing more research and showing it to more people. The next thing I want to talk about is why I think it's the greatest time to be a copywriter. If you heard Mark Ford, I'm sure you did, Mark talked about how when he first got in the business with Bill Bonner, they would go to these publishing roundtables, and this is where a group of like a dozen financial publishers get together, and they talk about what's working, what's not working, what are the big problems, what are the big opportunities. And as Mark said, the things that everyone discussed back then were, I need some more copywriters. Well, guess what people are talking about today? You'll be shocked. I need more copywriters. That's what everybody says. It's only conversations. I went to 2 of these things, and those were the only conversations anyone has. I need more copywriters. Where do you get more copywriters? Who are you using? So, and back then, the opportunity was about a dozen or so of these publishers. Today, there's like 600 people doing this kind of work. I have a friend who he works in our business, and he and a partner they have this great little business where they tell people how to master Sudoku puzzles. Like they write, somehow people pay for that. I don't know, but this is like a real business. People are really into it, and they give people advice, and I guess they give them harder puzzles. I don't know. And then I have another friend who sells tons of golf instructional videos. And I mean, this is an amazing business. And this business didn't exist a decade ago and couldn't have existed. I mean, you can't make money selling videos on how to fix your golf swing. But these guys do today, and they have a huge booming business, and they do great work. I have another friend who, he's more of like an ad agency kind of guy, and he goes out and picks products, and he sells them. He does partnership deals and sells them online. And has anybody seen the promotion for the 4-Foot Farm? Anybody see that? It was a fantastic promotion. And so he's done all kinds of products like this, where he finds a neat product, and he sells these things online. So there's just, to me, the opportunity out there is amazing. But there's a big but to this. I think that the days are either disappearing altogether or at least melting away, where you can be the kind of copywriter that I grew up thinking what copywriting was. So, when I started learning how to write copy, the idea was you would get an assignment, you would work somewhere in your office or something, you would crank out this 20-page thing, you would shove it off to whomever you were writing it for, and that was it. You were done, moving on to your next project. And they would put it in the mail, and they'll figure out what to do with it, and you'll just start collecting the royalty checks. But the world has changed, and so, maybe if you're Paul Hollingshead or John Ford or Gary Bencivenga or somebody, maybe you can still do that. Maybe you can be this copywriter where you're just going to get assignments, you're going to go away, you're going to sit in your office, you're going to write copy, and that's it. You're done with it. If you're as good as those guys, maybe you can do it. But for most people, this whole world has changed. And so now you have to become kind of a combination of marketer and copywriter. And what people really want, and it's amazing to me, and it's exciting too, because for me, this has been great over the past few years to just see how the industry has changed. And what we do in our business now is we do this thing every day at 10 o'clock, we meet for what we call War Room. And so War Room is we go over all of the ads and promotions that we have going out to in all kinds of different ad channels. So at any one time, we have 3 or 4 different promotions working, and each one we're trying to run on TV, ideally, on radio, to email lists, in newspapers, and then on various places online. And so this whole world of copy and marketing has changed dramatically. When in the olden days, there was no way to get any measure of why or why not your copy, why it was working or why it was not working. You just sent it out, and you didn't know how many people opened up the envelope in their mail, right? You had no idea, no way to test it. All you could count was the orders. But now it's totally different, and now every little piece of this is measured and can be measured. So you post an ad online somewhere, and you can measure exactly how many people clicked on it. And then what happens when you click on these ads is it usually goes to what we call an advertorial page or a landing page, which kind of describes this. And you can tell exactly how many people read that. You can tell exactly how many people click on that. Then you can tell how many people get to your, what we used to call the copy, which is the longer sales page. And you can tell exactly how many people are on that, and exactly how many people read to the end, exactly how many people click on it. And then you get to your order form, and you tell how many people click on it. And then you get to some kind of upsell, and you figure out how many people click on that. So it's this world where copy and marketing are merging. And I think if you don't embrace this process and learn how this is working, you're going to be left behind. And so, I see it happening even in my group, where we have a lot of writers who came up in the old school copy world where it was they just wanted to get their assignment, just go squirrel away in a room somewhere and write their copy. And it just doesn't work that way anymore. You have to be involved in a different way. And so I think there's a huge opportunity for people to the neat thing about it is I think you don't have to, your skill level as a copywriter, you don't have to be as good as you used to have to be. And maybe I'm wrong about this, but I believe that with some basic copy understanding, if you can understand some basics of copy and you can understand some basics of marketing, you can have a fantastic career or a retirement job or part-time job or whatever you want to do, because there just aren't that many people out there who know these things. And the neat thing about it, the neat thing about our business, it's not like Apple Computer where they come out with a great product and you have no idea how do they do that? I don't know how they put this together, what these components are. I mean, no one can even understand it. But the great thing about our business is it's all out there, right? So anyone who's advertising, you can see exactly what they're doing. So you find, an industry or a niche that you want to be in. Let's just take golf. You're into golf, right? So you start reading what the Revolution golf guys do. They're the best golf marketers out there by a long shot. They're really good, and you figure out what they do and how they do it, and you click on their ads, and you buy a few of their products, and you go through the sales funnels, and it's all right there. And you can take this and apply it to your golf thing, or you can take and apply this to something else you want to sell. So I think you just have to realize that the copy world is changing, and it's changing because of the way you can advertise online and the way you can just track everything. I have a friend who, he writes copy. He's like 24 years old or something, and he writes copy in a totally different way than I would ever have even thought you could write copy. The way he does it is he starts with the ads, and he runs ads, which then he measures how many people click on various ads. And then when he finds an ad that works, then he writes a lead to a package. And then he sees how many people, when they get to that lead, he tests like 3 at a time, and he figures which one gets people to click to the next thing. And so he just assembles this, and it's all assembled online, and every piece is tested so that by the time he gets to the end, in theory, you have something that works well. So I'm not saying you have to do that. I don't write copy at all that way. But I am much more conscious of where my copy is going to run, and I think way ahead of time, what kind of ads am I going to write? Where is this going to, how am I going to get people to click on ads that get them to see my copy? So I do think it's the greatest time ever to be a copywriter. There's so much opportunity out there, and still, even in our business, even in my business, the greatest need we have, I think, is copywriters. So I think it's an amazing time, but I also think that you have to realize that the industry is changing, and you need to adapt. All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about is a little bit about my business, and I wanted to bring up 2 of our copywriters, Kelly Brown, Michael Ford. So our business is, we're based in Baltimore, and our biggest business is in Baltimore, but we've also, in the past few years, become shareholders in some other fairly big businesses. So these guys were both members of our recruiting class 2 years ago, and they are both fantastic copywriters. They're on their way to being superstars in this business. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about, careers that you can have as a copywriter and what you can do. And so, they've been studying and learning for 2 years, and Michael isn't sure what he wants to do, and he maybe wants to run a copy group someday. He's thinking maybe he wants to start his own business, but then he's also thinking that he might just want to live in Nicaragua, have a family, and surf and write copy a few hours a day. But his options are open. Kelly is a great copywriter too. She came from the financial world, and she might want to run a copy group. She might want to start her own business, but what she really is excited about is making ice cream. So she might do that. So my point here is that you don't have to know what you want to do when you're trying to figure out how you're going to make your way in this copy world. What you have to do is you have to just learn to become a decent writer. And when you learn to become a decent writer, you'll figure out the next step. You'll figure out if you want to be a freelance writer. You'll figure out if you want to sell ice cream with direct mail somehow. And you'll figure out if you want to just live on the beach and write copy part-time. But the most important thing is just to get the skills, and then you can do whatever you want. So don't worry about where you're going to, I don't think you have to worry about where you're going to be in 5 years. Just figure out a way to learn the skills the best you can. So we've got a lot of copywriters, and besides Stansberry Research, we now have, we're a large shareholder of Casey Research, and we are a large shareholder of Bonner & Partners, which is Bill Bonner's newsletter business, and we are large shareholders in James Altucher's newsletter business, if you know James, and each of those businesses is desperate for copywriters. So if you have any interest in writing copy and you want to have a full-on career, this is, we've got opportunities, so you should see us. And I'm not going to give you our contact information. If you can't find us, then it's best we don't work together. So, but I wanted to tell you about one. So, I talk about how there are all kinds of things you can do when you can learn to write copy. And maybe you want to have your own business or be a freelancer or whatever. But one of the guys who I hired in 2008 took a totally different road. So I just want to tell you a little bit about him. So I got him to write a little letter about his experience. So this guy's name is Jason Hansen. And Jason was a super hard worker and meticulous, and he ran every day at the exact same time each morning. He was in the office every day at the exact same time, and he took lunch every day at the exact same time, and very methodical, but a fantastic guy and a great worker. And he left Stansberry Research after about 5 years to do something interesting. So if you've ever seen Shark Tank, I'm sure most people have seen Shark Tank, right? So Jason was on Shark Tank, and he started a business where they do all kinds of funny things. So it's all about how to, in case you're captured by, in case you're kidnapped, or in case someone invades your home, he can show you how to get out of those ties with you got something on your shoelaces, and you do all kinds of crazy stuff. So anyway, he's got a great business now. But anyway, so Jason left Stansberry Research to start his own business, and he says, I truly can't say enough good things about Stansberry and how much I owe them for the success of my current business. I know it's a cliche, but one of the best decisions of my life, besides my wife and kids, was working at Stansberry. I've always wanted to learn from the best, and that's exactly what I got. They took me from knowing virtually nothing about copy to helping me become a good copywriter who has used the skill to now run a very successful safety and survival business. You see, I decided to leave Stansberry after about 5 years, not because I was unhappy at all, but because I wanted to pursue my dream of running my own business. I wrote a long sales letter about my business, spy safety and survival training, and I sent the sales letter to the television show Shark Tank. Long story short, I appeared on ABC Shark Tank and have now appeared on numerous television shows. So anyway, Jason's got a great business. His website, if you want to check it out, is spyescape.com, and it's pretty fun. So anyway, so we've got a guy who left Stansberry to start his own business. We've got one woman we hired years ago. She left to have kids, and she's going to come back and probably work part-time. We've got a handful of people who live in other cities and work out of their house. So there are all kinds of exciting things you can do if you want to work with us. I think that we've proven over the past decade that I'm sure we have the best track record of training copywriters in this business. So if you do want to work with us, you should come see me or come see Kelly or come see Michael. And I brought these guys up because as you guys are just starting out, many of you, and these guys have been in the business now for 2 years and have worked really hard and are on their way to becoming fantastic copywriters. And so if there are any questions for me or any questions for them.
I thought all your writers were in-house, but it seemed like you just said that you do use...
They all start out in-house.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
And then when they get good enough, they can fly the nest and go do whatever they want to do.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got our Baltimore office where Stansberry is located, and then Casey Research, Bonner & Partners are in Florida, and the Altucher Group is in Denver. So...
Everybody has to start in-house with you.
Yep, everyone who works for us has to work with us in the office, at least to start for a few years.
What do you find is the marketing channel that's changing the most by increasing?
The marketing channel changing the most by what? Last part?
By increasing.
By increasing. I don't know. These guys are involved in that probably more than me. Any thoughts on which one is changing the most?
I'd probably say Google. They changed the ad requirements for what type of marketing they want to put out there. So you're really just at the mercy of writing to please their in-house staff. So we've had to change the way we write our ads, who we target, and how we target them.
And how much has EOS changed with that?
How much has EOA?
Sorry, yeah.
The
SEO.
core message
Yeah,
is obviously still... Oh, SEO.
Yeah,
we don't do too much SEO, but we still run our main ads that have brought us in a lot of traffic for years.
Okay.
Yeah, the funny thing about these networks is it's, and I don't know if you got what we mean by these ad networks. So whenever you're on a website and you go to the bottom and there are all kinds of ads, right? There's a ton, there's probably 100 different companies that have that business. So you give your ad to the company, not the like say you're at the Washington Post, right? You're at the Washington Post website. At the bottom, There are all kinds of ads. And what the Washington Post does is they get paid by they'll usually have one or two ad network companies. And so we deal with the ad networks who then they place their stuff on the Washington Post site or the millions of other sites. So the crazy thing about these ad networks is these guys are just middlemen, right? So they're looking for, they want to see what, sometimes you pay them well, you always pay per click, and then sometimes you pay per conversion, but you don't need to worry about any of that. But the crazy thing is that this all changes all the time because it all depends on who your rep is and who you're dealing with and what someone there thinks. So, it's just crazy. It's like someone will leave and then all the rules change. So when I say literally, we talk about this stuff every day because it changes every single day. Where something works on Google and then all of a sudden, Google says we can't mention, I don't know, what did they say recently? We can't. They'll say
dollar.
We can't mention the word the dollar, or we can't have a picture of a penny. They're weird things where you're just at the mercy of what the ad networks say you can do. So, you don't really need to stay. You don't need to stay on top of that stuff in detail. What you need to do is you need to just see how people are selling. You just see when I click on this, does everybody know what an advertorial page is? You can make a lot of money as a copywriter just becoming a master of advertorial pages. And this is when you click on ads. Most of these ad networks make you go to a page before you go to the copy. So it looks like it's like a fake news article. So you got to deliver something useful, and you have to answer kind of whatever was teased about in the ad, but it's not where you make your sale. To make your sale, you click again and go to your promotion, right? So just understanding what all these different new kind of pieces are. And the sales funnels, people have sales funnels it just means, you buy something and then they try to sell you something else. Or sometimes you don't buy anything to start, you just give your email address. So there's different, you don't need to worry too much about the specific ad networks. You should just try to keep up with how are people selling things, because the easiest way to be a superstar marketer or copywriter is to just look what one person's doing in one industry and apply it to another industry. You can copy it exactly. Of course, you can't copy the words, but you can just do the exact same thing someone else is doing. And if you see something run a lot, that's what you know is working.
This question is for Kelly and Michael. What is the most difficult aspect of your job? Is it coming up with ideas, doing a million revisions, or keeping up with technology?
For me personally, it's the emotional curve that Mike showed earlier. I think that is the number one thing you're going to grapple with, because you're going to grapple with it on every single project you do. And we try to write about five or six promotions each every year, and then we might be involved on teams on other promotions. So that means every 2 months you're going through that entire emotional roller coaster. And obviously that can be a bit fatiguing, but if you just remember that the pot of gold is always at the end of the rainbow, and that you can get there in just a couple months, I think that helps get you through it.
And yeah, you have that, like I said, even when you've been doing it for 15 or 20 years, you still go through that same curve. So unfortunately, that never goes away.
I'm wondering about the way the world is today. Everything needs to be done fast, quickly, quick. And yet we're talking about sometimes people sitting down and reading 10-page advertorials or whatever it is. Rich Armstrong just demonstrated, the usefulness of a magalog. What do you think about copy that's very long like that as opposed to the quick world that we live in today? How does that fit in?
Well, my take is that, at least in our business, and this is not the case for all direct marketing at all, and I think you have to recognize that what we sell in our business, we sell ideas and we sell newsletters, and no one has a need for newsletters. Bill Bonner's famous line is, no one needs a newsletter. No one wakes up and says, honey, we're out of newsletters. Better go down to the store and get some more today. So when you're selling ideas, you typically need a lot of copy to do that. If you're selling a product like my friend sells this water filter thing, you don't need a lot of copy to sell, right? People drink water all the time, so I can explain in 2 sentences, I can give you much cleaner water for much less money. You get that, right? But I can't sell you on a newsletter about investing or finance in a few sentences. So I think that you still need long copy, and I think that in our business, I think that we're going after a small segment of the population, and this segment of the population they're readers. They read like crazy. They read lots of books. They read lots of newsletters. So these people who are our subscribers, and they don't read one newsletter. They have probably 10 newsletters, and not just from us, but from all the other financial publishing companies out there. So, I don't think that's ever going away, especially when you're selling newsletters. I think that, are there ways to do it differently, or maybe break up the copy into smaller parts? Probably. I think especially if they're already your subscriber, you can probably break things into smaller parts and not have to deliver 20 pages. But I think that I haven't seen any promotions selling financial or health newsletters that are only a few pages. I think the only way you can do that is if you totally change the offer. So maybe it's a free offer, or we have these $5 offers that we do now, where you pay $5 today and get billed more later, and you don't need as much copy for that. But if you're selling somebody a $50 newsletter, I think you need long copies, so I don't see that changing.